we're going to start a series on the book of Revelation. We will come back to finishing up the Lapsarian controversy. We still have the principle of the mutual call and that sort of thing. And please remember that is important. There are some churches that major on prophecy. There are some groups that major on prophecy. And as good as it is, and as interesting as it is, and as important as it is, prophecy is for another group of people in another era. And we have to know exactly what we're supposed to do and where we fit and so forth in order to get rewards at the upcoming Bema seat of Christ in the rapture. However, we have been doing on Wednesday nights a study on the seven churches of Revelation. And we've been going through a video series produced by Radio Bible Class, The Day of Discovery, and so forth. And the reason that we do this is because I know some of the people that are producing these things. I don't know Mart DeHaan personally, but I feel like I do. But I especially know Jimmy DeYoung. Jimmy and I were best friends at college. And it also shows that Jimmy DeYoung Jr. at the end credits is either one of the producers or a cameraman or something. And, I changed his diapers. I babysat for this kid, and there he is now on an international ministry, a Radio Bible Class. But anyway, one of the reasons that I wanted to bring that up here with regard to that study is that the geography of it, the history of it that they bring in is absolutely fantastic. Some very excellent camera shots, impressive things with regard to what happened at that period of time and some of the ruins and excavations and archaeology and the like. It is really fascinating. But every time I have to preface these videos with, we don't exactly believe like they do with regard to the book of Revelation. And I have to explain. They believe that Revelation chapter 1, verse 1 through Revelation chapter 4, verse 1 is something that is all past. That these letters to the seven churches were churches that were in existence at that time to which the Lord was writing. Now, of course, the fact is, yes, that's probably true. There were probably 7 churches. We know there was one in Ephesus. 7 churches that existed at that time to which the Lord probably wrote. However, we are different in that we believe that the fulfillment and the application of what God said at that time is for 7 future churches. Well, you say, Pastor, wait one second. What about the church at Ephesus? What about the Apostle Paul in the book of Ephesians? Yes, that's true. Paul did write to Ephesians. But do you know, the Ephesian church in the book of Ephesians and the Ephesian church in Revelation are probably 2 different churches. Oh, about to have the big one. How can you say that? I can say that because John was a circumcision apostle and Paul was the apostle to the uncircumcision. John wrote primarily to Jewish believers, and Paul wrote to Gentile believers. And never the twain shall meet. And you have to keep that into account when you're interpreting the book of Revelation. I remember a long time ago, it's been several years now, we had someone bring up something from the book of James, and how this was applicable today. And I got up and I said, now please remember the dispensational principle here. The book of James does not directly apply to us. And we all had a royal hissy fit and said, Pastor, how can you say that? And I'm shocked. It's been several years back that we do not recognize the most basic principle of all. Genesis through the book, first part of the book of Acts, and then Hebrews through the Revelation are written to one group of people, and that's Israel, and that's the church. It's not that it's not for our learning. It's not that there are not some transdispensational principles. But those things, as we'll see, have nothing whatsoever to do with us. Now, I'll give you a good opening contrast here to where we're coming from. If you want to know, and if you will say, well, now, Pastor, I disagree with that. Disagree all you want, because you're going to be barking at the moon in just a little bit, because I'm going to show you why this particular book has nothing whatsoever to do with us. Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Okay, now, what is the thing that is going to shortly come to pass? Note verse 3. Blessed is he that reads, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, for the time is at hand. Verse number 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. They also which pierced him, all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. What revelation is Jesus Christ referring to here as he's having John record it? It is the return of Jesus Christ at the end of what time period? The tribulation. And notice it has prophecy there. It is the revelation of Jesus Christ according to prophecy, to show things which must shortly come to pass, for the time is at hand. Whenever John and Jesus Christ and the apostles preached to Israel, they said, repent, for the kingdom is what? At hand. This book, the book of Revelation, and the things that Christ is having John to write are for a future generation. If you just hold your place here, turn back to Romans chapter 16, here is what our apostle teaches. Verse number 25 in Romans chapter 16. Now to him that is of power to establish you according to my gospel, which is the preaching of Jesus Christ according to the revelation of the mystery, which was kept secret since the world began, but is now made manifest. You have two different revelations from two different apostles to two different groups of people about two separate events. John is writing about, through prophecy, about the second coming of Jesus Christ. But Paul, according to the revelation given to him, writes by way of mystery about a secret coming of Jesus Christ. There is the rapture, there is the revelation. There is Paul, there is John. He is uncircumcision, John is to the circumcision. Paul is for this dispensation, and John is for the end of the age or end of the world, or more literally, the end of the dispensation of law. So the book of Revelation has nothing whatsoever to do with us except for the doctrine of adumbration. Now, we studied that, and you should know it. What does that mean? What does the doctrine of adumbration mean? It means a foreshadowing or an overshadowing. We can look forward and see right now that there are things that are happening that foreshadow the fact that the rapture is near, and that the tribulation period is about to be set up. Things are being placed on stage. Well, for example, NATO, the United Nations. Who was the person who solved the problem with Iraq this time? The leader of the United Nations, who is promoting a one world government, a new world order, and the like. All of those things are right in place. The rise of the Roman Catholic Church is another. And on we could go, but that is not our study. Except for the doctrine of adumbration, this book does not pertain to us. Now, we're going to note, therefore, that, and oh, by the way, neither does Hebrews, James, 1st, 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and Jude. These are part of a group of books that were predicted in the book of Isaiah, who is a Jewish prophet. It was there was more illumination given to this particular group of books in Daniel and then in the earthly ministry of Jesus Christ. They are called the books of the testimony, or the testimony of Jesus Christ. They are for the Jew, specifically the Jewish remnant that is left alive after the rapture of the church. Once we're gone, there's going to be a Jewish remnant, and they're going to need information about the time in which they live. What books of the Bible specifically address, almost like a morning newspaper account, blow by blow through a period of time? What books address that? Hebrews, James, 1st, 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, and especially the book of Revelation. And we'll see how it fits. Because it really is fascinating how God withheld information from Old Testament people, and even withheld information to people in the time of Jesus Christ. He's going to say, I've got many things to say to you, but you can't bear them now. Besides that, I don't have much time. They're about to come get me, and I'm going to be crucified. But I'm going to send the Comforter to you, and he's going to not only bring to remembrance whatsoever I have said to you, he's going to show you what? Things to come. The things that he showed to come for that group of people, the 12 apostles to Israel, is Hebrews, 1st, 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, and Revelation. Okay. I don't know about you, but that excites me. Now I know what does and doesn't belong to me. Now I know why these books were written, and they were even prophesied. Again, they are called the testimony, or the testimony of Jesus Christ. In fact, let's go back to Revelation. Here is one of several key verses which attaches this book, Revelation, to this prediction of a set of books giving information for the end of the dispensation of law. Note verse 2, Revelation 1. Who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ. In fact, that's why John, verse number 9, was there on the Isle of Patmos. And by the way, we got some things coming up in these films that are kind of cute because the radio Bible class is going to take us out into the Aegean Sea, and they're going to show us the Isle of Patmos. And as they go out in the morning, the sea is very calm. But as they come back, there's a storm that has arisen. There's 6-foot swells. And they all went for the Dramamine real fast, let me tell you. Verse 9. I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ, was in the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God, that is called the law in Isaiah 8, and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, why was he there? He was there for the testimony of Jesus Christ. Well, he had a good testimony. Nonsense. The word testimony is the key word, because Isaiah 8 says that my disciples are going to have the law, and then they're going to bind the testimony. And the testimony, which is the testimony of Jesus Christ, are these added books to give additional information to a group of people who will live at the end of the age. And it will primarily be the Jews. Chapter 19 of the same book. Oh, by the way, I've been excluding a couple of about 4.5 books from this testimony. As we will see, actually the testimony involves Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the book of Acts. especially the first part, and then Hebrews to Revelation. That is all included. Remember what Jesus said? I've got many things to say to you. You can't bear them. But when the Spirit comes, he'll bring to remembrance what I've said. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the first part of Acts, are bringing to remembrance what the life of Christ and the words of Christ to what group of people? Again, it's basically Israel. The four gods, it starts off with John the Baptist preaching the kingdom of the book of Matthew. Do you preach that today? You do not. You preach the gospel of the grace of God. These books are for the Jewish remnant because, generally speaking, what doesn't the nation of Israel today, what don't they believe about Jesus Christ? Orthodox Jews or secular Jews or whatever you want to call them, or even very religious Jews, which are the Orthodox or whatever you want to call them, don't believe that Jesus Christ is the what? Messiah. The ending book of John says, I'm going to testify to you that Jesus Christ is, that Jesus is the Christ. Who is that book written to? The Jews. So that when the rapture takes place and the Jews come and say, okay, we're looking for our Messiah, where are they going to get information? From the law and the testimony that's going to come up. And what is that testimony going to say? I, John, the beloved of the 12 apostles, testify to you in my books, which include John, the three books of John, in the general or circumcision epistles, and then the book of Revelation, that Jesus is the Christ. Who is he talking to? Is he trying to convince me, a Gentile? I wouldn't have even known it had I not become a Christian, and how many Christmases did I go through? And people said, he's born King of the Jews. Yeah, right, great. Give me the presents, let me open them up. It's meaningless, but now I know. However, I also know something far better. And that is, that's for a different time in the past, and it's for a different time in the future. He is now head of the church, over which I am a part. Okay, verse 10 here, 19. I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said, see thou to it, I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. When the apostles lived, they did not have these books. They did not have these information. In fact, we're going to go to the book of Daniel, and Daniel was going to beg God to please give me an understanding about this. And you know what God told him? Seal up the book. It's not for you to know. However, if you come to the book of Revelation, do you know what it says? Don't seal the book. You keep it wide open. Why? Because the book of Daniel is going to fit right in, and the book of Revelation is going to fill in all the details. For what group of people? Daniel? No, he didn't need to know. He was going to die. He wasn't going to go through the tribulation. But there's a group of people that will. And Revelation fits right hand in glove, as it were, over Daniel and fills in all the details. Now the remnant will know what to do because they have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Chapter 12. Verse number 17. This is the middle part of the tribulation period. And the dragon was angry with the woman, the nation of Israel, especially believing Israel, went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God. Here's the two categories, the law, and have what? The testimony of Jesus Christ. What is the testimony of Jesus Christ? It is now in the book of Matthew chapter 24. They knew from Daniel that there would be the abomination of desolation. But they know from Revelation now that they are to, and from Matthew 24, that they are to flee to where? The wilderness. Who told them to flee to the wilderness? Jesus did in Matthew 24. Matthew 24 was written some 500 years, or that information given 500 years after Daniel. Add about another 100 years for the book of Revelation, when we now have the woman, verse number 6, fleeing to the wilderness. She was told to do that in Matthew 24 by Jesus Christ. This is the testimony of Jesus Christ. Jesus said, here's the book of Daniel, and you know the abomination is going to set up, and now I'm telling you, when it is set up, flee to the wilderness, to a place prepared of God to feed you there. How do they know that? Again, verse 17, because of the testimony of Jesus Christ. And the book of Revelation is for that group of people. Are you ever going to have to pray the Lord's Prayer? Probably not. Give us this day our daily bread. I'll bet you if we went to your cupboard and fridge, you've got enough to exist for about 30 days. I'll bet you if the tribulation period, oh no, you don't? Well, if you don't, I'll bet you in your cupboard you do. You have cans of soup. You have a means you will not have to pray this. You'll not have to flee. Besides that, how in the world would you ever get to Petra if you saw the abomination of desolation from here? You couldn't get on a boat, and you couldn't get on a plane without taking what? The mark of the beast. Now, there are some wilderness areas around here, I guess, that we could flee to, but it's not a place prepared of God. This is the place specifically said that they're to go to, prepared of God. And by the way, two places where you can see the opening or the entrance to Petra itself. If you watch Indiana Jones' The Last Crusade, they ride their horses through what looks like a cave. That is called the Sick, or the entrance into Petra. It is a cave, but it's more or less a tunnel all the way through that opens up into a grand gorge or valley that has many places to hide, and has underground water sources there where somebody could go in and live indefinitely. If they had enough food, live indefinitely, because the water is already provided for. But you say, well, Pastor, what if they poison the water supply? Don't you remember Mark chapter 16, that Antichrist does try to kill the remnant by poisoning their water supply? And what does Mark 16 say? Let's go back there. As part of the testimony of Jesus Christ, how does this fit? Am I supposed to have the testimony of Jesus Christ, and today in the dispensation of grace, drink a can of liquid, Drano? What do you want? Anything that you can. Fine. We'll do it right here. I'll do the funeral for free. In fact, afterwards, we'll just set you up, allow you to drink it, carry you out, and throw you in the river for a while. If you want to be that crazy. But yet, note what it says, verse 17. These signs shall follow them that believe. Mark 16. My name they'll cast out devils. They'll speak with new tongues. Why? Because they're hurrying up saying the kingdom's at hand. They don't have time to go to language school. That's what the gift of tongues was. So they go to all the world and meet somebody that they have never met before and whose language they do not know. And you know what they're going to be able to do? Relate to them the wonderful works of God in their own native language. That's what it's all about, not the gibberish that we have today. They'll take up serpents. Why do they say that? When you go into Petra here, and you're about to take these caves, guess whose home you are about to take? Undoubtedly, they're going to be bitten. Children are going to be bitten. But remember the promise of the kingdom. In the kingdom, a child shall play on the hole of an asp, one of the most deadly of all of the snakes. And yet, what's going to happen to that kid? Nothing. So this is a token toward the coming kingdom. You're going to enter this, and there are going to be snakes all around. If it were me, I'd have to say, well, I'll just camp outside. Forget the promise. I'll do that. Verse 18, they shall drink any deadly thing, and it shall not hurt them. He is going to try to poison the water supply. But they are the faithful remnant of God, protected and provided for in this special place, and God is going to make provision. But where did they learn that? They learned it from the books of the testimony of Jesus Christ, a separate and distinct group of books for a group of people that maybe some of them are born and will be in the tribulation period. Okay, now one of the things we have to do here is look at some of the ways that Revelation is interpreted. One of the very first ways, and by the way, a lot of people believe this. If you are an amillennial person, which means no kingdom, you do not believe in the literalness of the book of Revelation. There's a whole lot of churches out there, and they're even moving to this position, where everything in the book of Revelation is simply a symbol or an allegory. It is not to be interpreted literally. And of course, that is not true. Might I say that our view is, of course, the literal interpretation. Well, you say, Pastor, wait 1 second. It says that Jesus Christ has eyes of fire and feet of brass. Okay, now, in every legitimate language, what do you have? Figures of speech. Yes, there are figures of speech. There are literal symbols that stand for something. Jesus Christ has eyes of fire. Simply means that the eyes of the Lord run to and fro, knowing the sinners and the righteous. And that he is going to be able to ferret out sin, as it were. He's going to purge all sin. No sin can escape his view. That's why he's pictured as having eyes with the flame of fire. Does he really have them? Well, no. I don't know what color his eyes were, but they're not a flame of fire. But why did Revelation do that? Because it's a figure of speech to let him know that now Jesus Christ is going to return and he's going to purge this world from sin. Okay, what about the feet of brass? Have we never studied Operation Footstool? Have we never studied the gesture of possession? Where Abraham was told, walk to and fro over the land. You're going to step on your enemies. Joshua was told, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon shall be yours. Joshua was told, come and have your people put your foot on the neck of their enemies. What is that? They had feet of brass. The thing is, they're going to judge the enemies of God. And Jesus Christ is going to come back and judge Antichrist, the armies of the world and the people of the world that oppose his kingdom. So, yes, there are allegories or symbols in the book of Revelation, but they are simply the exception to the rule as figures of speech. What is the rule? Literal interpretation of the book of Revelation. But some folks say, well, it's all an allegory. You assign to it the meaning you want, and I'll assign to it the meaning I want, and who cares? All right, the second is the historical view. By the way, a whole lot of people do this. That is that the book of Revelation, especially the 7 churches, merely present historical eras in this dispensation. They are also called presentists. So that if you turn back here to Revelation chapter 2, where we have in verse 1, well, let's see, we can get it better up in chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 1 and verse 11. Send it to the 7 churches in Asia, unto Ephesus, unto Smyrna, unto Pergamos, unto Thyatira, unto Sardis, unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Okay, now what do they say? They say that the names of these churches and the verses that give their general characteristics have to do with the way that the church in the dispensation of grace is going to be characterized at a specific time. They're going to have the Ephesian era. Then they're going to have the Sardis era, and so forth to Philadelphia. Laodicea being the worst of them all. It's the last of the church, and God judges it. But again, that is not true. Turn back with me to the book of 1 Peter. Who were these people, or who will be these people in Asia? They will be the scattered remnant of Israel that is forced to leave the land through persecution at times that they've got, and will be churches or groups or called out. Ecclesia means called out. These churches have nothing to do with the Gentile church of this age. These churches have nothing to do with local churches in this dispensation. They are local Jewish groups of people that find themselves either near to or in the tribulation. Note 1 Peter. The apostle of Jesus Christ to the estranged ones, the strangers there, scattered throughout, this is 1 Peter 1:1, Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia. Now, who are these people that Peter is talking to? They are Jews. He is the person that has the keys of the what? Kingdom. He is going to sit on and ruling over one of the 12 tribes of Israel. These are Israelites who were scattered. By the way, at this point in time, who scattered these Jews? Let's go back to the book of Acts. Book of Acts, chapter 8. Verse 1, and Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time there was great persecution against the church which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Now, they continued moving north because what was Paul doing on the road to Damascus? Why was he 100 miles north of Jerusalem? He was going after those who were scattered abroad at the stoning of Stephen, and they were moving north because he asked permission and was given funding to go clear up to Damascus and further north. And then he found if any in that city, he could arrest them and take them back to Jerusalem to stand trial for their treason against the state of Israel in accepting Christ as their Messiah, king, and so forth. Paul, that's why he was on the road to Damascus. He was going to scatter the Jewish remnant at the time, that group of people that believed. And where did they end up? They ended up at the four corners of the earth eventually, but they ended up in these areas. The area of Asia. What is the area of Asia? Every time the movie comes on, the video comes on, they show a picture of modern-day Turkey, and they say, this is the Roman province of what? Asia. And it goes all the way from Syrian Antioch all the way to Istanbul. And Paul was born in Asia. And in fact, it gives a clue as to why that whole area got judgment from God when the Ottoman Turks came in there. Paul says, all that be in Asia have done what to me? Forsaken me. So they ask, Mark DeHaan asks on the film, wonder why this has all happened. How could a group where it was predominantly Christian, all of a sudden now they're taken over by the Ottoman Turks? I'll tell you why. It was discipline from God for those people in those regions leaving the grace message and not recognizing the distinctiveness of Paul's ministry. Churches that do that. What's the greatest threat here in the United States of America? Drugs? Nope. Society crumbling? Nope. What is the greatest threat? The greatest threat is having people behind the sacred desk not teaching the truth of the Word of God with regard to Paul's distinctive ministry. Time and again, people who do not teach the truth, God brings judgment upon a nation because of that particular problem. These other things are incidental to that problem. If you get people believing and proclaiming the truth, God blesses the nation. When you have congregations and pastors who do not support and stand for the truth, you have nations that crumble and have judgment from God. That's why what was once the enclave of a Christian churches became predominantly Muslim. Okay, let's move on to one last thing here. We have just a few minutes. Now, if somebody asked you, and they're given their view of Revelation, and they say it's all symbolic, you need to say to them, well, now that's the allegorical one. They probably won't know the technical term, but that's what it is. If they say, well, it just represents eras throughout the church history of what characterizes the church at a specific time. Well, that's the historical view. That is not true. The third one is especially not true. This is the position of the Roman Catholic Church with regard to the book of Revelation. They believe that it is all past. It was all fulfilled in and around the first century. It is merely descriptive or coded language of what the church went through or what they were to do at the time of their persecution by the Roman emperors and by the aggressive Sanhedrin like Paul once was. Now, why did they adopt this view? Because if you read Revelation chapter 17, it is obvious that the great whore sitting on the waters is what church? The Roman Catholic Church. In the book of Revelation, there are two churches that are the worst world churches. One is the Catholic Church. The other is the Jewish church that proclaims Antichrist as the Jewish Messiah or as Jesus Christ. So the Roman Catholic theologians got together and said, well, we've got to do something here about the book of Revelation. Because obviously, if I didn't know better, this business of Arrayed in Purple and the Golden Cup and so forth, if I didn't know better, that would sure picture the Roman Catholic Church. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what let's do. Since the church interprets the scriptures for the people anyway, we'll just call this the preterist view and say this is all past and it's all coded language for that time and that group of people. That gets us off the hook. Now we can be the Roman Catholic Church and no one can say, well, you're the harlot of Revelation 17. So that's their view. However, as we will take up when we get back, we are futurists, and with that, we'll give your brain a rest.